Welcome to another episode of Street Entrepreneurship. I'm so excited to have Mr. Mohammed Rashid and Miss Nikila Madhurakavi, whom I met a few weeks ago at Coding Coffee in Philly. They were incredibly kind to me and have generously agreed to be interviewed and share their journey with co-founding the Foundry, their time at Drexel, and their global experiences. So, welcome, Mr. Rashid and Miss Nikila. And they actually give a SHAT. So, okay, my first question for both of you is you guys co-founded the Foundry, and your tagline is "We actually give a SHAT." So, what is the meaning behind the tagline and your name, the Foundry, as well? And also, what is the difference between giving an SHAT and actually giving an SHAT? So, either of you could answer. Both of you can.
No, Mohammed, I don't think we can hear you. Okay, but I can go ahead and start answering. So basically, the name of the foundry kind of came from that idea of a place where things are built from raw materials, which is what we're trying to do with founders. And then that tagline, it came from a frustration. There's so many incubators and entrepreneurship clubs that exist on paper. They host one panel or they hand out a flyer and they call that support. And so we want to signal from day one that we're not like any of those clubs or so-called support systems. We actually show up for these founders and we sit in that mess that they make with them. And then we care about their outcomes, not just like our own optics. And the actually in that statement is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Giving a say SHAT means nothing if you're not actually in it. That's kind of how that story came about.
All right, that's great. Do you have anything to add on to that, Mohammed, or?
Yeah, so I would say I would agree with Nicola here, and in my opinion, the name also came from us being tired of fake support because every founder community that we saw was basically a group chat, in my opinion, and it was just a monthly mixer every time. Nobody followed up, nobody pushed you. We
Yeah.
actually give SHIT. It actually means that if you tell us about something that you're building, we're gonna ask you about it next week and the week after that. And it's not just a slogan, it's how we operate. The difference between giving an SHIT and actually giving a SHIT is follow through. Most people actually cheer you once, but we stay in the room.
All right, that's great. So my next question for both of you is, could you please tell our audience more about yourself, specifically for you, Mohammed? I know your journey to Drexel and the Foundry, and I also saw that you are a student government senator. So is politics potentially in your future? And for you, Nikila, I saw that you have a lot of experience in medicine, biomedical engineering, and even traditional, if I could say that, medicine and healthcare. So what are your future plans as well? Do you want to pursue like pursue an MD or a PhD? So either one of you could start.
I can go first. So when I first came to Drexel back in 2022 September, I was just a kid who was just who all knew about just majors, GPA, get a job, retire. But as I went through, I realized that I like building things. And when I was in that mindset, it gave me a chance to win a couple of hackathons. Like there was Owl Hacks, the Philly Code Fest, and through that, I realized that the hardest part of building it's not just the code, it's everything around. Finding
Yeah.
people, getting feedback, staying motivated when nobody cares yet, and that gap there, it's what made me want to build a foundry. To be honest, and the student government gave me reps in organizing and politics, but honestly, I'm just a builder, man. I'd rather ship than run for office.
All right. That's great.
That's amazing. Yeah, I came to Drexel for biomedical engineering and I was drawn to it by the co-op program specifically. I wanted that real experience, not just what you learn in classrooms. And I did get it. I did some drug discovery at Merck. I did data consulting at Penn, quality engineering at Jabil. And each one showed me a different layer of healthcare, pharma, clinical, manufacturing. And in every single one, I still kept seeing the same problem, which is great ideas are dying because no one knew how to build them. And so
Mm.
I think from that experience, I was able to co-found the Foundry, and it came out of that observation, really. As for my future, I don't think an MD is in my field. I think I don't have the capacity for that. I do really appreciate those who do. It takes a lot for that passion. But I think I'm leaning more into healthcare entrepreneurship, and I want to build things that fix broken systems in medicine, not just study them.
All right, that's a
Yeah.
great path that you're taking. So obviously you both are at Drexel studying and working, for you specifically, Nikila. But how do you guys have time to, how do you guys find time or how do you guys manage your time to co-found this community for founders and entrepreneurs and a support organization that allows, talent to be revealed? And like, as you guys said, like, you're going to keep on asking people about, what they're really building. You show care in really what they're building. And especially in today's brutal job market and all the pitch events you guys are going to. And I know for Mohammed, you're I think the marketing and partnership lead for the Foundry. So how do you guys manage your time with all of this going around you as well?
Yeah. I think Mohammed's frozen.
Oh yeah.
Um, okay, I'll hopefully you get that fixed. But for me, honestly, I think the biggest thing is you stop asking for permission from your calendar.
Mhm.
Like for me, like Drexel's co-op model means I'm constantly cycling between academic and professional modes. So it
Mhm.
actually trains you to be ruthless about prioritization. And for me, I feel like the Foundry doesn't feel like that much of a burden because it's not separate from my work. It is my work, essentially. So when your mission is to help other founders not feel alone, no matter what, you will find the time. That said, like I won't pretend it's not hard. Like it's very gut-wrenching sometimes, but then so is watching someone with the real idea give up because no one was in their corner. So
All
I
right,
think
that's
like that mentality of, oh, it could happen to someone else and I don't want it to happen just keeps motivating me and pushes me to keep going.
all right, that's great. Um, I
I think.
think he's maybe back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Apologies.
It's okay.
Yeah, I did manage to get. I think I got your question. I think it's about time management, if I understood right.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. So for me, basically, I don't balance things. I just choose what to be bad at that week. Sometimes it's just a foundry that gets 80% of my energy. Some weeks
Mhm.
it's classes or it's a hackathon. But
Yeah.
the trick, it's not balance. It's being honest about what's getting neglected and making sure nothing stays neglected too long.
Mhm.
And for me, being in marketing and partnerships, it is brutal. I'll be honest. Yeah, it is brutal. But also, you send 50 messages, get 3 replies. But that's also where I learned that most about how real business works. Nobody owes you their attention.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. That's great. Okay, so now I'm gonna direct questions separately. So for Mohammed, so talent, okay? What skills should students and young professionals today master or acquire? Like I know we all know that AI and tech always is evolving and it makes certain skills like obsolete, but what are like employers, investors, VCs, and based off of like experience you have, obviously, what are they asking for, you think, really?
Mm, okay, so I would say it's just AI that just made execution cheap. You can
Mhm.
spin up an app now. So the skill that actually matters is taste. Taste, when I say taste, it's knowing what's worth building in the first place. And beyond that, 3 things. Can you communicate clearly? Can you sell? And can you ship under pressure? Those are the 3 things that the employees and investors are looking for. They're the same thing that they're both looking for, actually. They're also looking for someone who doesn't need to be managed. And in my opinion, that's what everyone needs these days. Because anyone can build something, like I mentioned, anyone can pull up something in a day or a weekend, but it's all about the imagination and the amount of work you're willing to put in.
All right, that's a great response. And for Nikila, so in medicine and healthcare specifically, like what are your views on AI in healthcare and even like the use of physical AI like robotics in medicine and surgery and just the caretaking industry in general?
So I just want a quick thing. I love this question because I was actually talking to my dad about this just right before this. So shout out to him. But I think I'm generally excited and cautious at the same time. Like AI in diagnostics, drug discovery, pattern recognition, like we've seen all the real wins here. With my experience, I've seen firsthand how much noise there is in clinical data that AI definitely has cut through. Robotics in surgery is fascinating. Precision beyond human hands, reduced recovery times, all of that is amazing. But then in caretaking specifically, I think that's where I put a pause. Not because the technology isn't impressive, but because care is relational. It's like we have to be honest about what we're replacing and whether patients actually want that. It's kind of like I like to think like the risk isn't that AI fails. It's obviously going to succeed, but it's that we let it succeed in the wrong things. And in this case, with caretaking, it's a very relationship, person to person based. AI can't replace human emotion.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. Okay, so that's a great response. And okay, I'm going back to you, Mohammed. So why found in the modern day? Like why launch a founder-led community? Do you feel that there's like not enough support of a support community in the phase of a young person's life? Or and also do you feel like the bridge between talent and employers has maybe eroded because of a world we don't recognize more? Like why do you need a found, basically?
Great question, actually. I wanted to address that for a while. So the reason why I specifically wanted to found this community is because I watched a lot of smart people, talented people with great ideas. They waste semesters, but not because they were lazy, because they had no feedback with, because there was
Yeah.
no one telling them that their idea had a fatal flaw. There was no one connecting them to the problem. Sorry, apologies. There was no one connecting them to the person who built something and already solved their problem. So what the Foundry exists to compress that. And I'll give you an example. We just launched the Founder Index with another organization in New York known as the Founder Square, basically reaching 240K plus founders monthly. Because we think the discovery at this current time, it's broken. And talented people shouldn't have to get lucky to get noticed. They should there's a lot of talented people, man. Like everyone
Yeah.
deserves a chance to shine in the spotlight. So that's what we're
Okay,
here for.
all right, that's great. And okay, going back to you, Nikila. So I was reading like Mark Cuban is fully committed to solving healthcare, specifically with pharmacy benefit managers or PBMs. And to be honest, I don't really understand it, but what I'm pretty sure what he's after is transparency and how money actually flows throughout healthcare. And his thesis is that like waste is a result of a lack of transparency because of like crookedness, and greed, and it's honestly like harming decency in healthcare, that the client's in like brutal pain and there's a lot of profiteers who are trying to just squeeze as much money as they can without considering just healthcare in general. So in your opinion, how would you, I guess, solve healthcare? I'm just kidding, but like seriously, what do you think of entrepreneurs in healthcare, and what are you trying to fix about it, I guess, or what do you want to do towards it?
I'll definitely take that challenge seriously. I think in terms of Mark Cuban's research, his instinct is right. The waste in healthcare is downstream of opacity. So like when you can't see where money flows, bad actors will fill that vacuum. Like that's a known thing. I think the deeper issue is that healthcare was never designed as a system. It evolved as a patchwork of like economic incentives that was just layered on top of human suffering. So entrepreneurs in medicine definitely matter, especially at this time, because we're the ones that are willing to break from that legacy. Not because we're smarter than doctors or like the policies, but because we're building with fresh constraints. So I think the best healthcare entrepreneurs I've seen, they're not trying to disrupt the system. They're actually trying to give a shit about patients. Whereas in the past, it's been solely on how can we extract enough money from this person.
All right, that's great. Okay, so now my next question for both of you, now it's going back to both of you, is a hacker house next for the Foundry, or do you guys already have one?
I take that. So we actually have one. We already have one hacker house. So
Mm,
and it actually validated everything that we believed in. So basically, when you put driven people in the same physical space, the rate of things that happens, it just accelerates. Conversations turn into collaborations overnight. Someone mentions a problem at dinner, and by morning, three people have a prototype.
mm,
You cannot manufacture that energy on Slack or Zoom or Discord. No offense, but that's not how it works.
mhm.
But yeah, so yeah, the hacker house isn't the next one. It's already part of the DNA. The question
Mhm.
now, how we scale that intensity without diluting it.
Mhm. All right, that's great. And another question for both of you is that you guys obviously have seen many entrepreneurs and founders. So what do you think unites them? Like I know obviously you're saying over dinner and things like that, but what other things do you think unite them, and what do you think they also lack in this process as well?
So I think genuinely what motivates them, and in my personal opinion, is that personal why. Is, like why they solve this issue, whether it's because they have a problem that they've lived with, a gap they couldn't unsee. It's really money at the start. A true founder doesn't believe in the money because they know it's actually going to come much later. They believe in that passion of building. And I think
Yeah.
what scares them is two things: failure, obviously, but more specifically, public failure, the kind that feels like proof that you were wrong to try. And then the quieter fear is that they'll succeed but lose themselves doing it. Like the loneliness of building Israel as a solo founder, it's something that happens a lot. And I think that's something that we're trying to tackle at the Foundry.
All right, that's great. Um, okay. Yeah, so my next question is for both of you again. What advice would you give to anyone who wants to become a founder today? And also for you, Nikila, especially in healthcare and biomed engineering, what about in that field as well? So you both can answer it separately if you want.
I can go first, if that's all right. Yeah. I would say for any new founders out there who are starting really, really new, my advice, build something small and finish it. Don't plan for 6 months. Do not wait for a co-founder. Just ship something really ugly and learn from it. Because the biggest lie in startup culture is that you need a perfect idea, but you don't. You need reps. Every founder I respect has a graveyard of failed projects behind the thing that works. So start small. Doesn't matter what you're working on. It can be something personal, or just don't follow the trend. Like there's a lot of trend these days. Like, hey, I'm doing a blockchain. I'm doing MCPs. I'm doing RAG servers. Like, okay, I respect that, but dude, just if you don't have to follow the trend. If there's something that you have experience in and something that you have faced before and you want to fix it, that's where I would start. It doesn't matter if it's too small or too big. Just go all in. Don't even wait for validation in the first place. Like if you're in that mindset where you have to, oh, let me ask this person if the idea is good. No offense, but you'll just waste your time doing that. So better, my opinion, just start it. Just do it. Just do it. Go all in.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I would do.
completely agree with what you're saying, Mohammed. I think when it comes to healthcare and biomed, it does get a little tougher in the sense that you need clinical context before you build. So you need to spend time with patients, you need to spend time with nurses, not just doctors, the people who are doing the actual work at 3 a.m. on their night shift. They will tell you where the real problems in healthcare are, not like pitch decks or any fancy health physician or doctor. And also your first idea is probably wrong, but that's fine. Kind of adding on to what Muhammad was saying was what matters is that whether you're curious enough to keep redefining it, and in healthcare specifically, understanding the regulatory landscape early. It's not a barrier, it's a design constraint, and you need to learn to build with it, not against it.
All right, that's great. And my next question would be now targeting the job market. So like in today's world, what's specifically wrong with jobs? Like I've been hearing about countless of large companies laying off thousands of employees and things like that. So and we also know how difficult it is to be a founder. You have to go through like a really painstaking process, to stay committed and spend a lot of time on it really. So you're sort of in like a dilemma of if I go to a job, I have the chance of being laid off, or do I have to start my own thing? So, what's your take on that? Exactly, like what should you do about that in today's world, at least?
Yeah. How am I going to go first?
Uh, uh, okay, I'll go. I'll go for it. So, okay, okay. So jobs, in my opinion, they're not bad. Like I've done internships personally. I worked at famous companies like Brown Brothers Harriman, and I also worked in a few startups. I learned a ton. Like I learned a lot. But at a job, you're optimizing someone else's vision, and the difference in that is that when you're building, you own the outcome. For me, the ownership is addictive. I would rather fail on my own terms than succeed on someone else's.
Yeah. To kind of add on to that sort of a med angle, like there's nothing wrong with jobs. They give you stability and like that's something that we do need. I think when it comes to like the future of medicine in terms of my field, I think it's not like doctor versus entrepreneur, or it's not like healthcare official versus builder, founder. It's like both of them have to coexist together. And like the ones who thrive will be the ones who can combine like clinical expertise, like actually being on the field and understanding what's going on. And then with systems thinking, like how, okay, I have this topic, I have this issue in the hospital. How do I actually build from that? Like you kind of have to put both together. One can't exist without the other.
All right, that's great. And my next question for both of you again is, so obviously we know being a founder is tough, but after you've had that established like phase, sort of like in your guys' case, how you guys are trying to scale, but you've already established yourself kind of. So when a founder is like successful like that, and then you have that phase for growth, for scale, who exactly would mentor that? And what do you feel are the steps for a company as it grows?
You can,
Okay. Okay. So I think in terms of mentorship, like this is honestly an undeserved gap. There's a lot of infrastructure for early founders, there's accelerators, pitch competitions, co-working spaces, all of this. But like when you actually start to scale, that mentor pool, that mentorship gets thin really fast. In terms of the steps I've seen, you validate, you build the thing that proves the idea, you find your first 10 believers, and then you hire for what you're not. And I think at every stage, the key is you need different mentors. The person who helps you get to 1 mil revenue is not going to be the same person who gets you to 10. So a skill that everyone I think should keep in mind, or at least in the back of their head, is knowing when to evolve your advisor circle. I think once you're able to get that, you'll actually get the right mentorship for the stage that you're at.
I'd like to add on to that. So early on, the founder is the company, You're coding, you're selling, you're designing and everything. The hard part is when it starts working, because now you have to stop doing and start building systems, hiring, delegating, letting other people make decisions you would have done differently, And nobody really mentors that transition well, because most advice is either early stage grind or late stage management. The messy middle is where people broke.
Okay.
All right, yeah, it's a great way to visualize it. And now I'm going to separate questions again. So for you, Mohammed, I saw that you have global education background, which is incredible, and you have very inspiring lived experiences of the global systems in general. So what do you think is lacking in schools, and what do you think needs to happen today in schools as like we value critical thinking skills more like asking questions versus like a rubric-based grading, memorize the facts type of model?
Mm, okay, great question, actually. So right now, I would say schools are still grading. They're still grading you on whether you memorize the answer, but to be honest, the answer is on ChatGPT or Google in 2 seconds now.
Yeah.
What's missing right now is the loop of identify a problem, build a solution, and get feedback, iterate. That's what hackathons taught me more than any class. And I think schools should look a lot more like hackathons, They're time boxed, team based, and outcome driven, Critical thinking is not just a model that you add. It's what happens when you stop handing people with it. Because I myself have been in that situation before, because when I first came to Drexel, I was just in that mindset about being, just memorizing everything that I learned. But I realized that's not how things work here. Because when you enter out in the real world, problems are not structured, they're unstructured. And you have to figure out how to put them together in order to find a solution. And that's what I feel like schools should focus more into.
Right, that's a great view on that. And for Nikila, so before college, you also had a lot of you did a lot, and you have a lot of lived experiences that were also inspiring. So could you tell us more about that, and also what do you think is lacking in schools? Actually, never mind. This is the same question. I separated by accident, but yeah, same question I asked Mohammed, basically.
No, yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to my lived experiences before college, I was already in labs and clinical environments. I had early healthcare exposure that most kids don't get. Even when I was in high school, like it was COVID, but I still found ways around that with like online programs or, like online shadowing sessions and stuff like that. So I think all of that taught me the most important skill isn't knowing the answers, it's kind of knowing which questions are worth asking. And I
Mhm.
think that's exactly what schools don't teach. We've built an education system around rubrics and, memorization, as you said.
Yeah.
But the world is increasingly rewarding people who can, synthesize across domains and build something from nothing. So I think the thing that we need to change is we need to teach these kids to think, like, with these hackathons and stuff like that, not just to test.
All right. Okay, that's great. And my final question for both of you is, what advice do you have for Gen Alpha? And I guess you guys are part of Gen Z, but yeah, so mainly for Gen Alpha, who are like young entrepreneurs, like 14-year-old, 13-year-old entrepreneurs who are diving into be founders. Like, what is your biggest piece of advice?
Mhm. So, I also can't hear you.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Right now they have access that we didn't. So technically,
Mhm.
a 14-year-old today can learn to code, build an audience, and launch a product from their bedroom. So the risk is in lack of tools, the lack of depth. You know, moving fast is great, but if you never sit with a hard problem long enough to actually understand it, speed becomes a trap. And my advice on that: go deep on one thing before you go wide. You know,
Mhm.
these pull from your actual experience instead of sounding like a fortune cookie. You can trim or riff off any of them. They're meant to be starting points you'd say in your own rhythm, not just scripts to memorize, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, that's
definitely.
great.
I agree. I think like starting now, not when you're ready. You're never gonna be ready. And I think that advantage that Gen Alpha has is that they've grown up with more tools, more information, and more access than any generation before them. I know like when I was like in middle school, I was not, hosting a podcast or, anything like that. Like I was, going outside and just like riding my bike. I wasn't thinking about this stuff. But the more I see it with my cousins and everything, they have so much more access to everything. That also can be a disadvantage. Infinite options can paralyze. But I would say, similar to what Mohammed was saying, pick a problem. Pick one that you really care about. Talk to 20 people who have that problem and build something that tries to solve it. The reps matter more than the idea, as I think that was a theme that was iterated throughout this. You're gonna have so many options, so many cool looking problems that you can solve that you think so many people like you'll follow the trend. But the trick is, if you don't follow the trend, you'll probably come out with something so unique, you will be the only person solving that problem.
All
That's
right,
what
that's
I think.
great. Yeah, I, I think I understand that theme of, just keep on building, just keep on, just keep on, just stay committed to it. You're never going to be ready, I guess. You just got to stay on that. So thank you guys for both giving me the opportunity. And now I know actually giving an SHAT, uh, I mean, that's a really cool tagline and it makes sense. So thank you for your time.
So much for
Of
this
course.
opportunity to be interviewed. This was really great. Definitely keep it going.
Yeah. And I believe we have great potential too. So keep going, man. Like whatever you're doing, just go all in. Lock in, man.
Lock
Yeah.
it.
Don't give a such idea about what anyone says and has anyone to object on. Just go all in, man. Don't give a such idea about what anyone says. Just go all in. You know.
You
Yeah.
are you are you're gonna go further than your fears. I like to think about that because obviously it seems scary when you're probably maybe one of the only people doing it or someone's doing it differently than you, but that fear should never stop you. It should fuel you to keep going.
All right. Yeah. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you.
Of course.